Hello, friends. I hope you're out wandering through nature, exploring the natural world around you. Do you enjoy writing about your wanderings? Nature journaling is an awesome, fun way to remember all the adventures you have taken and how you felt during those journeys. If you're looking for some beautiful journals to keep track of all your wanderings, I have several available on Amazon, including some guided journals for children. Start your journey in journaling by clicking on the link in the show notes. Keep exploring the nature around you and keep journaling all your wanderings. Hello, friends. I'm Paul, and this is the Nature Wanderer podcast. Yesterday, I was out hiking. Beautiful weather, nice and sunny. Actually did 3 different hikes, each one of them about 2 miles long. The third one actually was a little bit shorter, is about a mile. And it was just a gorgeous day, beautiful. But as I'm hiking through these parks, it just kind of blew me away, especially at the one park I was at, Knox Farm State Park. I kept finding garbage along the trail here and there. Emery Park, another park I went to, more garbage there along the trail. And I'm picking it up as I went along. But in Knox Farm, I also noticed they have all these new signs up along the trails, little, like yard signs that they stuck in the ground right near the entrance to a bunch of trails. And there's one just randomly out there in the middle of the trail. And they're all dogs must be leashed unless they're in the dog park. And I thought, wow, they must have been having a problem with unleashed dogs going on the trails. And that's why they put all these signs up. We shouldn't have to do that. And I thought, well, that's all right. Some people don't realize that their dogs need to be on a leash when they're in the park, and now they do. At least that's what you would think. I counted. We ran into 3 dogs unleashed in the park. We were there hiking for a little over 2.5 miles. We did quite a big loop in the park, and we saw 3 dogs unleashed. And of course, when you start coming up to the one, the dog owner calls it over real quick, holds it, and then lets us pass. And it's like, well, wait a minute here. Why don't you put on the leash that's hanging around your neck? So it dawned on me that people just don't know how to treat nature. I'm so used to knowing the leave no trace rule. I was in Boy Scouts as a leader for many years, and we always taught all our scouts, leave no trace. And they understood it. They knew that the premise of leave no trace is when you go out hiking, camping, whatever you're doing in nature, make sure you leave the area that you were in the same or better than you found it. So don't leave any trace. And it includes more than just not littering. It includes respecting others. So I realized yesterday that a lot of people don't understand leave no trace, or maybe they've never even heard of leave no trace. It's an unwritten rule out in nature. Most nature enthusiasts know about this whole leave no trace thing. And there's even a website, I believe it's leavenotrace.com or .org. I don't know. I'll leave it in the show notes for you so that you can check it out yourself. And it'll list the 7 principles of leave no trace. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today, are the 7 principles of leave no trace. So when you're out exploring, wandering through nature, please do this leave no trace thing. Try to stick to these 7 principles. I shouldn't even say try, just do it. Stick to these 7 principles. Now, the first principle is an easy one. Plan ahead and prepare. So many times I've been out in my early years of exploring nature, and I would always go out hiking, didn't have my backpack, didn't have all the essentials, didn't have preparation. I really didn't know what I was doing. When I camped with my family when my kids were younger, it's like there was always something we forgot. There was always something we didn't prepare for. Now, I enjoy adventures too when you're just exploring a new territory, a new place. But even then, you can prepare for it. Prepare for your hike. Know about the area. So proper trip planning and preparation, it's going to help you to enjoy what you're doing safely. And also it minimizes the damage to nature, to the natural world, to the area that you're in. And it also prevents the unknown, which is never any fun. So proper planning means that you are checking out the area, you know where you're going, you have maybe read hikers' comments on it, or you checked out trail conditions, you've checked the weather, you basically were prepared. Okay, so you know what to expect on this outdoor adventure, whether it's a hike, whether it's a camping trip, whether it's just going out in the woods and exploring. You have all the things that you think you will need, and you know what to expect while you're out there. When I went out west, I did a lot of research on what animals are around. We made sure that when we got to the national parks, we had our bear spray because it's not just black bear country, it's grizzly bear country as well. So we wanted to make sure that we had all the things we needed to stay safe. And we also made sure that when we went hiking, we had the proper footwear, we had the proper equipment with us. So that is what the first principle is. Plan ahead and prepare. And make sure you're prepared for the unexpected as well. You never know what you're going to run into. So always have a first aid kit. Okay, now the second principle of leave no trace is travel and camp on durable surfaces. This is a really important one. When you are camping, when you're traveling, always make sure the surfaces that you use are durable. I remember when I was younger as a scout leader for a Cub Scout pack. Cub Scouts were packs. So I was a leader for a Cub Scout pack, and we would go every summer to this Boy Scout camp. And at this camp, there were always shortcuts. Yeah, the kids and adults too made these shortcuts from like the nature lodge out to the main road, cutting through the woods, making a new trail, instead of taking the trail that the camp had made. And I see this in other places too. I went hiking last week in the Erie County Forestry, and in the forestry, there was an area of the trail that was really muddy. Now, I had my hiking boots on, so I was fine to go right through the mud, but I noticed that a lot of people were going around the mud, and by going around the mud, they were making a whole new trail. And this new trail was getting trampled down. It was causing all the vegetation to die off because it was getting trampled on. Same thing with camping. Set your tent up in an area where you're not going to damage the vegetation, a durable surface. So if you're in a campground, don't make a new site for your tent. Use the one that they have for you. I know on some of the longer trails, like the Finger Lakes Trail, some of these trails that I've hiked on, I always seem to run across lean-tos. And these lean-tos are set up so that people who are doing the long-distance trail, they have places to stop. And that's where number one comes in. plan ahead. So make sure you know where these are, these little lean-tos, so that you can make that your camp for the night. It's a durable surface. They already have a lean-to set up. You can put your tent inside the lean-to if you really need to, or you can just use the lean-to. They usually have a fire pit there, one that's controlled, so you don't have to make your own fire pit. So always try to use a durable surface. Now, in high-use areas, campers should concentrate their activities where the vegetation is already absent. So don't find a place where there's lots of grass, lots of ground cover, and make your tent camping site there. Find an area where there is already a lot of, well, like in the woods, there isn't much vegetation because the leaves block the sunlight and the ground, the forest floor, is bare. That's where you want to build your campsite. So always make sure durable surfaces. Now, the third principle of leave no trace: dispose of waste properly. And this isn't just for camping, this is for hiking, this is for any outdoor activity. If you bring in something like, a power bar, don't toss the wrapper on the ground after you open it and eat it. Instead, put it back in your backpack, in your pocket. Always carry out the trash that you brought in. Now, if you are camping, when you leave, always inspect your campsite for trash or any spilled foods. Foods will attract wildlife. You're not feeding them. You don't want to feed them. That's domesticating them, and that's when wildlife gets too used to people, and they see people basically as a food source. And that's when we run into trouble. So always make sure that you get rid of all food waste in the proper way. Either pack it out with you or make sure it is buried. Make sure you take care of it. And speaking of burying, let's talk about body waste and wastewater. They require proper disposal as well. If you're going to use the bathroom, if you need to go number 2, always make sure that you dig what we call a cat hole. Okay, a cat hole is 6 to 8 inches deep, and it's big enough so that you can bury your number 2 in there, your waste, and cover it up so that it can't be dug up by an animal. You are leaving it as you found it, the area. So you dig this little cat hole, you go to the bathroom in it, your toilet paper can go in there too, and then you cover it up with the dirt. And cover it up with any leaf litter that you moved out of the way or any pine needles, whatever was there. You want it to look like there was nothing there before you dug that hole. Now, wastewater can also be a problem. If you just dump, let's say you washed your dishes. Okay, you have all that food waste in there. What are you going to do with it? Just toss it in the woods? No. If there's a stream nearby, if there's a pond nearby, that's getting into the groundwater, and it's actually contaminating the groundwater. And like I said earlier, it can also attract wild animals. So you don't want to just dump it. What you want to do is you want to strain it, spread it out, and any of the solid waste put in a bag and basically take out with you. Or you can bury it as well. Once again, if you're going to dig these cat holes, make sure that you cover it up and leave it as you found it. Now, the fourth principle of leave no trace is leave what you find. So if you're out in the woods discovering, like I said, I'm always encouraging everybody, get out and explore nature, discover, touch things, see things, use all your senses, but make sure that you leave things so that others can explore it too. So that pine cone, that really big, awesome looking pine cone, leave it in the woods. Let someone else discover it and see it as well. Make sure you leave the rocks, plants, animals, anything else that you find, leave them. Okay, especially if you're in a national park or a state park or any park, because usually they're protected by law too. Anything that's in that park belongs to the park. But in my opinion, anything out of nature belongs to nature, not you. So anything you find, and I mean animals and plants too. Animals don't belong as our pets. They belong in nature. Plants, they belong in nature too. And some plants are protected. It may be legal if you pick them, take them, and bring them into your house. So leave them behind. And also leave things as you found them. If you're camping, don't be putting a nail in a tree to hang a clothesline. If you hang a clothesline, take it out. Don't leave that. Okay, so leave everything as you found it or better. And I always say or better because if you're hiking along a trail and you see some trash on the ground, don't leave that. Bring it out. Anything natural, just leave it. Okay, now the fifth principle of leave no trace is to minimize campfire impacts. You don't want to set the forest on fire. You don't want to set the grassland on fire. So always minimize your campfire impacts. Don't make your campfires too big. Only make it big enough to give you heat and to cook on. That's all you need. You don't need to make this huge roaring bonfire. Leave that for at home. When you're out in nature, minimize your campfire impacts. You don't need a huge fire, make it smaller. Also, don't go out grabbing all the firewood out of the woods. Hopefully you brought your own. If you didn't, make sure you're only taking dry, dead wood, and make sure you're not taking it all. It could be some animal's home. So always take minimal. Now, it's best to bring a lightweight camp stove. They actually make, if you're doing backpacking, they make small stoves that use propane or some other type of gas. It's easy to carry, it's lightweight, and it will eliminate the need to build a fire. So bring these stoves with you. If you do build a fire, if you have to build a fire, you didn't bring your camp stove, you forgot it because you didn't plan ahead, you forgot rule 1. But what you can do is make sure that you make it so that the fire will not spread. Don't go grabbing a bunch of rocks and place around it. I see that all the time. Those rocks have moisture in them. They can explode if they get too hot. Build a small berm. Dirt berm around your campfire, and always make sure when you're done you douse it completely with water. Make sure the fire is out completely and then cover it with dirt. Make it look like that fire was never there before. Don't just leave it thinking, oh, another hiker or camper will come along and they can use it. No, make sure that you leave it as you found it. So get rid of it. Make sure that there's no trace of that fire. Now, the sixth principle of leave no trace, and this is one that I feel is very important, respect wildlife. Quick movements and loud noises are stressful to animals. Think of your pets. I mean, my dogs, when there's loud noise around, they don't like it. Yeah, they start barking. My one dog goes and runs away and hides somewhere. So can you imagine what these wild animals are going through? So always make sure that you are quiet in the woods. Make sure that you don't do quick movements around these animals. Observe wildlife from a distance. I always, whenever I hear about this rule about observing wildlife from a distance, I always think about the time when I was on this National Wildlife Preserve that was a beach, And I'm up on a hill. My wife and I were hiking along this trail, staying on the trail. And all of a sudden we saw this bear off in the distance, down the hill, down by the water, down by the beach. And we just stayed there and watched it a little while. I took some pictures, and every time I snapped my picture, and those bears have good hearing. Yeah, they could hear my camera, and they'd turn around and they'd look at me, and my wife would get nervous. And it's like, okay, let's keep moving. And which we did. We didn't want to disturb it. Obviously, the sound of my camera was disturbing it. There were small cubs with this bear, so I wasn't going to mess with it. Chris, I don't mess with it even if it doesn't have cubs. I always try to keep my distance from any wildlife. Now, as we went up the trail a little ways, we saw another bear on the shore, and there were some more people around, and everyone's kind of watching the bear from a distance, and we're all up far enough away that we weren't disturbing the bear. And all of us noticed this family heading towards the bears, taking pictures, and I just shuddered. It's like, what are you doing? You're asking to get mauled by a bear. Now, nothing happened. At least we don't think it did, because I wasn't going to stick around and watch this insanity. And everyone else was the same way. They just left. It's like, yeah, this is insane. We did alert the park ranger to the whole situation. They said, oh yeah, other people told us too. So they were on their way out to make sure these people were safe and that the bear was safe. But please observe wildlife from a distance. It's important that you do that. Make sure that, especially during breeding season, that you stay as far away as possible. Now, if you are camping, or you are out hiking, or you're just out exploring nature, make sure that food is secured in an airtight container. Have you ever heard of a bear bag? If you're camping, put all your food in this bag and hang it high from a tree, and not right above your tent, away from your campsite. Hang your food there. The bear can't get at it. They'll give up on it very quickly, and they'll head on out. That's the purpose of it. If you leave your food in your tent, or even in an enclosed cooler, the animal will smell it, and they will destroy whatever's around it to get to that food. I went camping when I was younger. I didn't secure my cooler in my vehicle at the time. We were at a campsite, and we were doing everything right, but we forgot to secure our coolers during the day. So I figured, there's not a lot of wildlife active during the day, so everything should be fine. Wrong. Yeah, we went for our hike, and when we got back, our cooler was flipped over. All the food was scattered around our campsite, and most of it was gone. It was eaten. We are pretty sure it was raccoons that got to it, but it was our fault. And it was basically encouraging the wildlife to come around people. Free food. So always make sure you secure your food and garbage, any garbage with food scraps in it. Make sure you secure it far away from where the animals can get to it. Don't want to encourage these bad habits with these animals. Now, if you notice an animal is altering its normal activities, what it normally should act like, then you're probably too close to it. You're probably interfering with that animal. So back off, leave it alone. Now, rule number 7, and this is another big one because I see a lot of people who don't stick to this principle. So the 7th principle of leave no trace, and the final one, is be considerate of other visitors. And that just makes sense to me. Be considerate of everyone else who's out there exploring nature as well. Like these people yesterday with their dogs just wandering. I don't know if these dogs are friendly. I love dogs. I'm a dog person. I love dogs, but I don't know if their dogs are friendly. They may think they are. but it takes just the wrong scent or the wrong look, and the dog can turn on that person. That person, those people, I should say, because like I said, we ran across 3 of them, they were being inconsiderate of everyone else in that park. If you are hiking along the trail and you're making a lot of noise, you're being inconsiderate. I was in Emery Park yesterday with my wife. We were doing some hiking in there, and they have a disc golf course. And so there was a couple of younger guys doing some disc golf, playing some disc golf, and we were walking by. We were just talking quietly to each other, and here this guy has in his backpack, not just all his discs, his frisbees, he also had music. And he was playing it loud enough where it was disturbing my wife and I as we're hiking along, listening to the birds. I couldn't hear any birds, not with that music playing. So he was being inconsiderate to us, to the other visitors. Always try to respect others. Remember, they're probably out there trying to enjoy nature as well. So please make sure that you keep the sounds very quiet, keep the noise level down. Tape players, radios, leave those quiet. If you're out hiking, leave your pets at home or keep them on a leash so that they're not disturbing other visitors to wherever you are. Now, another thing that people don't think about with this one, being considerate of others, is what you're wearing. I know it sounds strange, but what you're wearing can bother others. Always try to dress in natural colors. Now, I do teach wilderness survival, and I always teach people signaling. Have something bright, something out of the ordinary. But don't wear a bright orange shirt while you're out hiking or camping. Okay, it's going to be distracting to the other people and the wildlife. They're going to see and they're going to run away. If you blend in, you're less likely to be obnoxious out there with your appearance. So not real important, but that is one that a lot of people always overlook with this principle. So try to do that. Also, respect private property. If someone has it posted or you're not sure if it belongs to someone else and it's private property, stay off it. Stay out of there. It's not yours to go and wander and explore without permission. If it's someplace you really want to check out, ask the owner. Get to know the owner. See if it's all right if you walk on their property. But otherwise, stay off the private property. If you are on property that you have permission to be on, or you're in a park or some other place and you have a gate to go through, we were actually at a place just last week, and they had a section that was sectioned off to help protect it from the wild animals. Lots of deer in the area. They've been decimating the ground floor vegetation in the woods. So they actually fenced off an entire large area. And there was a gate that you had to go through in order to get into this area. And so we went through this gate. We made sure it was closed after we went through. Now, they were smart. They actually had it hinged from the top so that gravity would make it close. But the hinge was a little bit off, and so the gate did have a little gap in it. So we made sure that it was completely closed when we went through. So always make sure gates are closed. Make sure it's basically as you found it, and respect private property. You don't want to disturb someone who basically wants their privacy, and you're disturbing it, and then they're not going to like the hikers. They're not going to like the people exploring nature. So please respect other people, respect the other hikers on the trails. You know, a nice hello, but then just quietly continue along. Don't make a lot of noise. If you have kids with you, I know it's difficult, but try to encourage them to respect the others on the trail as well. I was geocaching many years ago, and we were after this geocache. I had my kids with me. We were all excited because we were getting close to the geocache, and we finally came across it, and there was this couple, guy and lady. They were sitting on a rock nearby, and he had a GPS in his hand, and I figured he was geocaching as well. And I was trying to figure out, should we let them go first or should we go first? And the looks from this guy was basically just go ahead, get it, please, and get out of here. I kind of got that vibe from him, this feeling. He was very polite and said hello and all, but I just knew he wanted us out of there. I couldn't figure out why. So we went over to the cache. He also looked a little nervous, this guy. But we went over to the geocache. We opened it up, and inside there was a diamond ring. And I'm like, oh, God, this guy's proposing to his wife. We really need to get out of here. So we quickly signed the logbook, got out, gave him a nice smile and a wave as we quickly walked away. So we didn't want to disturb his adventure out in nature as well, and apparently his adventure with his wife. So, or I should say his future wife, is about to be fiance. So it was really an awesome time, but we also understood that we're there to respect it, and we walked away very quietly because we didn't want to disturb his special moments. So this is what I'm talking about. Respect others. So let's go over those real quick again. The 7 principles of leave no trace. Number 1, plan ahead and prepare. So be ready for whatever adventure in nature you are headed towards. Number 2, travel and camp on durable surfaces. So don't go off the trail. Don't destroy any of the vegetation. Use already pre-made campsites if possible. Number 3, dispose of waste properly, whether it's human waste, whether it's garbage, whether it's wastewater from dishes. Always make sure you dispose of it properly. Number 4, leave what you find. Don't be taking things out of nature. Always leave what you find. Don't dismantle things. Just leave it. Number 5, minimize campfire impacts. Remember, leave no trace, small fires. Bring a stove with you if you can. If you had to make a fire, make sure you left the site looking the way it was before you made that fire. Number 6, respect wildlife. Keep your distance. Don't bother the wildlife. Stay quiet in nature so that you don't disturb them. Make sure you take your garbage and food scraps out as well, and keep the food away from the wildlife. Number 7, be considerate of other visitors. We want to encourage people to be out in nature. So if you're considerate of other people, they're going to want to come back out and explore nature. Well, those are the 7 principles of leave no trace, and I hope you stick with those. Always keep them in mind whenever you decide to go wandering through nature, whether it's hiking, camping, or just playing outdoors in nature. Always keep all 7 principles in mind and follow them as best you can. Let's keep nature the way it should be. Well, that's about all the time we have for today. I hope you enjoyed wandering through nature with me. If you did, please rate and review the podcast. Don't forget, you can always drop me an email or a DM or get in touch with me if you have ideas of podcast episodes. If you have something in mind, maybe you'd like to learn more about, or if you'd like to join me on one of my walks or one of my podcast adventures, you can be a guest speaker or just tag along. You don't even have to talk if you don't want to. But always get a hold of me if you have any ideas. If you want to support the podcast, make sure you go to my Ko-Fi page. The link is in the show notes. And if you like journaling your wanderings through nature, please check out my new nature journals, which can be purchased on Amazon. The link, again, is in the show notes. And if you're taking kids out to explore nature, I have 4 different kids guided nature journals. They have adventures for the kids to do in them, and it's lots of fun. So also check out the kids' nature journals. Once again, the link is in the show notes. Hey, that's about it. So have a great week and keep exploring the nature around you. Did you know that plastic is made with oil, a fossil fuel that pollutes the environment? And did you know that only about 15% of all plastic is recycled into new products? Wouldn't it be awesome if we could live our lives without plastic so that we could stop harming the planet? Well, there's a company that wants to help you do just that. Life Without Plastic sells products that will reduce or eliminate your dependence on plastic. They have a large selection from toothbrushes to food storage containers to drinking straws, all plastic free. And it's reasonably priced. So what are you waiting for? Check out all these great plastic-free products and help save the planet. Just click on the link in the show notes to find out more and to start your journey to being plastic-free.